Good morning, gang. Happy Wednesday morning. Okay, not really something I want to get involved in. It's just not, but got to talk about it because we need to pay attention to it. We have, by now most of you guys know, another potential war on the horizon. I'm not going to make any predictions about whether this escalates or not because, I didn't think Russia would go into Ukraine, and look where we are 3 years later. Okay. But India, Pakistan, and to kind of give you an idea of where this one goes, this isn't necessarily, depending on if there's any escalation, okay, this isn't necessarily just a territorial war. This could also turn into an economic war, which could affect us. Now, give you an idea of the territory if you aren't familiar with East Asian geography. India is basically a peninsula, Pakistan being to their west and China being to their north. Now, we know the Chinese and the Indians don't get along. The Pakistanis and the Indians have been at war over this Kashmir territory for something like 1,100 years, okay? And you have little skirmishes, it gets quiet for a decade. You have little skirmishes, it gets quiet. This is just the way it is, okay? And has been for a long time. Overnight, the stories kind of got out a little bit more. I think the missile strike by India had 13 casualties. I think they've come up with now. Both sides have claimed to have shot down a couple of the other side's fighter jets. Of course, neither side claims that they were in the other country's airspace. And again, you got to remember the quality of the news sources that we're getting out of East Asia. And then the quality of the re-reporting from the news agencies that we have in the United States, okay? Somebody's got to spin it somehow to make a story to justify having their job at CNN. You just imagine all the liberals sitting in front of their computer like this, bug-eyed, going, oh my God, which flag should I put on my profile now that I support this side? It's like you see all the I support Ukraine, I support Palestine or Israel or whatever, and everybody, I've got to pick a side. No, you don't. Okay. I'm not going to pick a side. I don't give a shit who wins between India and Pakistan. Really doesn't make a difference to me. Okay. You do you, I'll do me, and that's fine. Okay. But the economic part is what gets interesting. And you start to take a look at this. We all know about the tariffs that that the U.S. is putting on the world, primarily on China. That's the big talk, and we'll see how these negotiations go in Switzerland. But you have a lot of companies moving their operations from China to India. India is slowly becoming an economic superpower, okay? Behind the United States and China. They are number 3 in the world, believe it or not. And so as these companies move from China to India, China's not exactly happy, even though we know under the table they're trying to say to other countries, including India, hey, can we make our stuff in China, ship it to you, and then you ship it to the United States so we can avoid the tariffs? Vietnam was the big one that they came out in Vietnam, said pound sand, because Vietnam wants to have good relations with the U.S. market, okay, consumer market. So China is an ally of Pakistan, okay? They could be helping the Pakistanis if this escalates. I'm not going to say when. I don't know if it's going to. Like I said, it's been going on for 1,100 years. Okay. But China is allied with Pakistan over India. China and India, not exactly on friendly terms. Remember, Pakistan also is in a little bit of hurt in regards to munitions as they sold most everything they had to the point where they've got about 3 days worth to Ukraine. Okay. They also have 1/6 of the population of India. So Pakistan is definitely starting out on the short end of the stick here if this escalates into any sort of bigger war. So having an ally like China is going to be very important to them. But then you look at the other part and go, well, between the two countries, India is probably closer tied to the United States than Pakistan is. You know, because God knows we couldn't find an IT person in the United States. We've got to get them from India. And God knows there aren't enough scammers in the United States. We need to get those from India too. Okay. But so does the United States back India? We don't have alliances with either one. And we have a couple of congressmen who are already calling for the United States to start supplying India with more military equipment. You know, I love, you know, we have a money tree in the backyard. We must have a military equipment tree in the backyard too, because we need to send more of this to Ukraine. We need to send more of this to India now. You know, everybody needs to have American military stuff. And of course, you know, these are all the congressmen that, of course, have deep ties to the military-industrial complex. Hey, you know, send us money. I need new steaks for dinner tonight. You know, I don't have enough. But, so, China, the U.S., opposing sides. Then you look at Russia. Now, Russia's a little occupied right now with Ukraine, but immaterial there. Which side's Russia aligned with? Well, Russia has a lot more interests in India than they do in Pakistan. Okay? And then you think about the Russians aren't going to necessarily support the Pakistanis. If the Pakistanis are sending military equipment to Ukraine, Russia not happy about that. But then Russia looks at it and goes, but we need the Chinese market because it's about the only place we can sell our oil. So we get back to that economic thing where now you have Russia and the U.S. both supporting India potentially, but China supporting Pakistan, but the U.S. supporting Ukraine. Do you see what a tangled web this gets to be? You know, where do your alliances lie? And you wonder why I say all the time, we just need to stay out of this. Because we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. How's it going to affect us? I don't know. Okay? Nobody can tell you. We don't know if this escalates. We don't know if this turns into a bigger war. We don't know if either one of the companies says screw it and pushes the button, because you got to remember both India and Pakistan are nuclear countries, okay? Not power plants, I'm talking missiles, okay? Warheads. Nobody wants to see that. So what's going on? You know, Trump made a statement from the Oval Office last night, saying, yep, we heard about it. We hope this de-escalates quickly, and that's it. Even though this is going on, and I'd say it's got the potential for being more dangerous than Russia-Ukraine or China-Taiwan, it ranks up there with, if not higher, than Israel-Iran. Another hot spot we've got in the world. And of course, we've got to have our sticky little fingers in every one of them. Okay? Because, again, we have money to burn. But in this case, we have two nuclear countries. Russia is, but Ukraine isn't. China's certainly not going to nuke Taiwan. Okay? Israel supposedly is. We don't know officially. And Iran is trying to be, so that's not. But India and Pakistan both are for sure. The world doesn't seem that worried. Okay? The social media, the journalists out there trying to gloom and doom, fear porn you. We're going, oh my God, this is the beginning of World War III. Yeah, they're trying to get clicks. That's normal. But if this was so important, why wasn't there an emergency meeting called at the United Nations, UN Security Council? No. Okay. I'm not going to say it ain't going to escalate. I already went up a dag on my face once saying that. I'm not going to say it is going to escalate. If it does, hopefully it's over quick and not nuclear. If it doesn't, it's just another day in the park for everybody. The only thing I see us having to worry about is the economic repercussions and whether or not they're good or bad. Hey, what if Pakistan does take out a couple of scammer facilities? Go Pakistan. You know, what happens if India decides, hey, you know what? We need to start a draft and bring back all the military-age males that are overseas on H-1Bs. Go India. Okay. I know that sounds kind of joking, but it comes to the point that I've been talking about all the time. This is their problem, not ours. I don't care what flag somebody flies on their social media profile. Oh my, I mean, it's already out there all over the place, people putting the Indian flag up or whatever it is. Of course, then you'll have the other side, because again, we got to remember this is primarily Hindus, India, versus Muslims, Pakistan. And the Muslim community is already throwing their support behind Pakistan. The liberal community is throwing their support behind India. Funny how that one works, because the Muslims are part of the liberal community, but now they're butting heads. There is no way for these countries, these people, these political parties, whatever, to have a nice, clean line. And we just get to sit back and watch them all be stupid. Are we going to spend money on this? Are we going to start sending money to India? I hope not, okay? You know, again, we don't need to be getting into wars. This isn't the Obama regime. This isn't the Biden regime. We need to be staying away from them. This is what nationalism is. This is what putting America first is. I don't care what happens to India and Pakistan. That's their problem. I don't care what happens to Russia and Ukraine. That's their problem. I don't care what happens to Israel and Iran. That's their problem. China and Taiwan, guess what? That's their problem. I care what happens with the U.S. We got enough problems at home to worry about everybody else's problems. Because what happens eventually when somebody does come up and say, you know what, maybe this would be a good time to attack the United States. Think it can't happen? I don't know. December 7th, 1941. Might jog your memory a little bit. Pinball out.